Hello guys, welcome back to what is basically a part 2 of my previous video, but instead of talking about what art and story things I dislike, I'll be talking about the things I do like instead. You guys really liked that last video, so here's the promised sequel. Pick at my brain and see what makes me tick. It's all good vibes here and I'll be yapping so much about the things I enjoy. But of course, first up, the art for this video. This month, it was another one of my best buddies, John's birthday. You may know them as Richard in Revelations Nevada, but we both were players in another tabletop RPG game years ago, with me playing as my OC Calypso, who I rewrote her story for Ascendo, and John playing as Jugo, the character I'm drawing right now. I also made them an acrylic standee of their OC for their birthday, just like I did with Joe, because I like making my friends merch of their own OCs. Now that that's out of the way, let's dive in. I want to preface this before we get started because people said they wish the last video had it, so I'm just going to put a general spoiler warning here, but if I bring up any piece of media you don't want spoilers for, you might want to skip ahead a bit when they're mentioned. Mostly when I talk about story stuff. I don't think I will be going too in-depth with story spoilers here for anything I'm talking about, like I did with the last video, mostly because I won't have to need to compare a thing I do like to something that does it badly and like deep dive into it, but I can see some of these having major plot points being as a part of my favorite thing, and if you don't like that, then you can just skip on ahead. I just think it's really unnecessary to be like, spoiler warning, every time I talk about any media I'll be talking about for this video. So if I mention something you want to go into totally blind, you may want to pause or skip ahead a bit. I will at least be mentioning a piece of media and not diving immediately into spoilers afterwards, but it's up to you to actually skip them, as I think going spoiler alert for everything is a bit impractical for a media analysis video, as I believe that this should be a given if you're watching anything that is talking in depth about existing stories. So let's begin. We'll start with one that I think is very well known among my friends, but even though I myself am not religious, I love religious horror. Not specifically anything that throws a priest exorcising a demon into it. I feel like those stories are done a bit too much to capture my interest in the way I'm talking about, although there are a few exceptions like the podcast Dominus. I specifically love the category of religious horror that involves the worship of something that isn't seen typically as holy when compared to most major real-life religions, but is treated as a holy thing, and the fallout that comes when that thing's true intentions are revealed. Think of things like Midnight Mass, the Silt Verses, and even of all things, Cookie Run Kingdom. Do you guys want to know how flabbergasted I was when I started playing Cookie Run Kingdom? I had started playing the game during the Seafarers update, the one that introduced Manju Cookie and Jage Cookie into the game. I didn't know anything about Cookie Run at this point, but I was having fun with it. So imagine my surprise when the next update comes out and we get religious horror, Eldritch God cookies. I swear, Dev Sisters saw me playing the game and went, quick, we must cater to Daryl specifically so they'll never leave. First new update for the game I got to experience, it was just 100% let's cater to Daryl from start to finish. Menthol Cookie is still one of my favorite characters in this game, to this day. The Silt Verses, however, is probably a perfect example of the specific type of religious horror that appeals to me. The show takes place in a world where there's a quote-unquote god for everything, and some of them are harmless, and they want only little things as sacrifice like trinkets or conversations, while others require worse things, including the death and or transformation of a sacrifice or even multiple sacrifices. And we get to see characters in the show grappling with the concepts of how truly awful their gods are, with the added anti-capitalist flavoring thrown into the story. It's all very yummy. I want more people to listen to this show. Which, speaking of the Silt Verses, but I love me a very good monologue. The show is full of them, and I love a monologue that just packs a punch by the end of it. I know some people don't like them because a badly done monologue can go on and they never really lead anywhere, but I love a good, well-done monologue. Paige from the Silt Verses has some really good ones. Some of her earliest internal dialogues about the systems she takes place in, and her struggling to justify her own inaction and complacency to herself before she breaks by the end of her introductory episode is just very good. It gives us so much depth about her character just in the first episode she was introduced in, and it's all done fantastically. The Silt Verses just has so many good monologues in it, and they give us so much info about somebody when they're introduced by a monologue without us having to actually just sit there and have the character tell us why they're this way. We could just hear it through ourselves because the characters will just go into conversations about something that seemingly doesn't matter or is just them commenting about the world, but then the way they comment it just like speaks more about them than the thing they're actually talking about. Hello from the Hollowoods is also really good at giving us the occasional monologue, mainly involving the show's narrator Nicky Nick. The first 3 seasons have Nick struggling with both the loss of a loved one and his own role in the story as an unattached narrator, who starts growing very attached to the lives he's talking about. William gives us such interesting dialogue from him, especially as Nicky Nick's professionalism as a dream host begins to show its cracks as he grapples with the predicament of letting them destroy the work of the being he loved, or to help them on their quest because he wants these people to succeed. It's all just very good. I also love a post-apocalyptic setting. Apocalypses are just a concept I latch onto in stories for, no particular reason. I like seeing the collapse of society and how people band together to make a new one. Some of my favorites are the Fallout franchise, The Last of Us, Far Cry New Dawn, and in some podcasts such as Hello from the Hollowoods. Though the webcomic Lyca's Comet has made me realize I also enjoy a good post-apocalyptic story as well, and just like a post-apocalyptic setting in general. Considering that I am currently brainstorming my own post-apocalyptic story that I want to make into a podcast someday, I think it's really funny. I love Lyca's Comet's solar punk aesthetic and its bland pro-environmentalism, anti-capitalist messaging, especially with just like how the society is very community-focused. The art is also just so cute and I love its colors. It's a very different kind of apocalypse from my previously mentioned examples, but it still feels like a calamity has fallen onto this world, despite the fact that our main cast are not fighting for their lives in a man versus man world. It's very good. You guys should go read it. Now everyone knows that I love queer characters and stories. I recommended many podcasts in the past that feature a wide range of diverse queer characters and plots, such as Hello from the Hollowoods, the Silt Verses, Hi Nai, Trice Forgotten, and more. I especially love seeing queer stories being portrayed in indie animation, and that is why I want to promote the upcoming campaign for the indie film Magnet, a lesson in the law of attraction. Magnet follows a high school boy with a magnetic heart that tries to attach itself to people he gets a crush on, and hijinks ensure when he gets a crush on both a boy and a girl. The funding to finish this film is being raised on Seed and Spark by the film's creator, David Cobb Jr. David is a fantastic artist with a wonderful creative vision, and I was given the honor to do some of the backgrounds and animation for this film. This is a project I've watched and worked on from concept while at university, and seeing where David took his original idea to where it is now has been such a fun journey. This genuinely is a project I do want to see finished. He has many great ideas for where he wants to take Magnet in the future, but first he needs your help to get this film made. You can be a supporter by following the link to the Seed and Spark campaign down below. In a world that seems currently so scary with the rise of AI art and hate towards the LGBT community, it's more important now than ever to have art that promotes love over hate. So donate today and help make Magnet come to life. But speaking of characters, there are 2 flavors of characters that I like that I can separate into 2 categories, I guess, to describe them, but they don't necessarily all have the exact same beats. I like being very vague with how I categorize things. The first is the morally gray sad man. Think of characters like Jonathan Sims from the Magnus Archives, Sage Miller from the webcomic Castoff, the Benefactor from Hi Nai, Silent Salt Cookie from Cookie Run Kingdom, Morgoth from Elden Ring, Hancock from Fallout 4. I could keep listing characters that I really enjoy, guys. I could do this all day. I hate the hyper macho male protagonist, not because it's a male power fantasy type of character, but because it's usually looked at as the way to write male characters. And I'm looking at you, Chris Redfield. Personally, I need something that is explicitly wrong with my male characters if they gotta be like this. I think Deacon St. John is forever the only version of the macho kind of character I think this has done it right. This poor man wants to be the edgy macho protagonist so bad, but his anxiety is just too much for him. But I like the morally gray sad man type because I feel like the aspects of that character type can balance out the parts of it that can easily be too much. Like an example of one character who doesn't really fall into the morally gray sad man that I really enjoy is John Seed from Far Cry 5. He's a sad man, but he certainly isn't somebody I would consider morally gray, and so as much as I love him, I don't really root for his character as I would for another morally gray sad man like Morgoth from Elden Ring, who although he too also plays as an antagonist in the Tarnisher's journey, like John does in the Deputy's journey, Morga is doing it to protect the Ur tree and the order that he's like kind of both like a champion for but also a victim of. And I don't find that goal to be similar to someone like John Seed, who has decided to cope with his childhood trauma by skinning people. And on the other hand, I like the morally gray part of my sad man, because if you got too much sad in that man and not much else, it doesn't catch my interest as much. Resident Evil 6 Chris Redfield, I am looking at you. This video is going to be another one where I talk about how much I do not like Chris Redfield. I feel like a lot of stories, if the sad man character becomes very sad, he's usually pushed aside just to be the sad guy who is there. Either that or they have to find a quick way to make him not a sad man anymore, but that tends to lead to a pretty rushed character arc, and if you're going to make a morally gray sad man out of this sad man, then lead more towards the unforgivable part of the morality scale. The Walking Dead loves to give us a bunch of sad men, but rarely ever lets them be sad while also getting some pretty questionable things done. We may get an episode of them going through it, but then they either die or it's like the thing that makes them sad doesn't really matter in the story anymore. I talked about why I hated what the show did with Sadiq in my previous video, but this is also kind of a part of why I hate what they did with Sadiq in it as well. But that's also what makes a lot of the writing for the Magnus Archives main protagonist Jonathan Sims so brilliant, especially when we get to season 4. By season 4 of the show, John has experienced the death of some of his friends, is being shunned by the rest of them, he's grappling with incredible guilt, he's being hunted by all the powers that are against him, and he is now being consumed by the need to feed his new patron with the fears of others. And he does, and is called out for inflicting this harm on people, and the Magnus Archives lets us linger on that. It doesn't try to justify John's actions for us, but rather lets John try to justify them to us himself, as he blames the web and Annabelle Cain for his new diet of statements direct from subject. In the end, we see him realize that it isn't right for him to do this. He's feeding on other people's fears, and it's all his choices and not nobody else's. And it makes him feel guilty that he does not want to stop. And we don't really stop seeing this kind of development of just like John going on instinct to do terrible things because of his new powers, and then having to forcibly remove himself from doing those things. It just adds so much to his actions, and even though some of the things he ends up doing is awful, it's all in service of trying to make up for the things that he feels guilty of. Now for the second category of character I like, it's the badass woman, but it's with an asterisk. I don't like the way Marvel tries to do the boss babe woman. I don't like the perfect flawless female leads, because here is my controversial opinion about the badass woman archetype, but if she is not a good, well thought out and written character if she is not one of either two things: a fail girl or a wet cat. She has to be a fail girl or she has to be a wet cat. Sister Carpenter for the Silt Verses? Wet cat. Mae Borowski from Night in the Woods? She's a fail girl. Daughter Dooley from Old Gods of Appalachia? Fail girl. Grace Ashcroft from Resident Evil Requiem? Wet cat and fail girl. They could be both. Both is good. A wet cat has to be sad, a poor little meow meow. Do they have to be pathetic? In my opinion, sometimes, but not constantly. But what makes it endearing for the badass woman, who is also a wet cat, is seeing her pick herself up, dust herself off, and keep going, even if whatever obstacle she faces pushes her back down again. Meanwhile, the fail girl isn't explicitly a woman who is always bad at things, but she has to fail, and she has to fail a lot. But like with the wet cat, she could make stupid mistakes and keep going, making more mistakes and still wanting to see her goals met. It becomes much more exciting to watch, because when she finally gets those goals, it makes her receiving her reward much more sweeter. Listen, I like my women's wrongs characters. I like my female power fantasy, but the problem is that some stories can only write their females characters as the woman character, and not much else from that. This is more of a mainstream issue than an indie issue, as all but one of my listed examples were from indie projects, but it's the one that makes me more sad. I can respect the desire for a female power fantasy, but I also love well-written character development, and if you try to sell me on a badass lady whose whole thing is she's so cool because she could do anything a guy can do, hashtag girl power, cool, but is she interesting? Is there anything else about her that isn't just about how much of a strong female role model she is? No? Then I'm not really interested. But give me a female character who does cool shit, even if it's someone like Grace Ashcroft, who is crying and screaming the whole time and has motivations and wants and isn't summed up in her story as the strong female character who could do what a man can do, and I will eat that for breakfast. I love it. I love listening to Carpenter commit crimes for revenge that don't lead to anything beneficial. I love watching May face the consequences of her actions in Night in the Woods. I love writing these kind of characters, like my OC Deb, who has been one of the major characters in the current chapter of In Harmony, and I can't wait to show you guys her full fail girl potential. I am so excited for it, guys. Now, one thing I love aesthetically is when people give characters weird eyes, horrifying eyes, unnatural eyes, uniquely shaped eyes. I enjoy it. I personally have not watched the anime myself, but I really like eyes, star-shaped eyes in Oshinoko, and Ruby and Aqua's shared eyes afterwards. It's a very cool, like, visual thing to look at. I love weird eye details like that add a little bit more to like both a story and a character's design. In my own art, I'm a little bit funny with it because I have characters like my OCs Micah and Tao, who both have weird eyes that the characters in the story think are unnatural, but then I'll pair them up with characters like my OC Meredith, who not only has purple eyes, but he also has this like unnaturally bright green centralized heterochromia as well. I like giving my normal human character designs weird eyes, and I'm very selective to when other characters deem it as weird. But the cream of the crop of my enjoyment of weird eyes, the one that makes me go feral when I see it, is when a visual story gives human characters those eyes that animals have that like shine in the dark. If you have seen Sinners or Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, then you should know what I'm talking about. The vampire's eyes in Sinners are just so good to look at, and I love that in Frankenstein the creature's eyes are like shadowed in such a way that only like one of the eyes glows. I was like going nuts watching both of those movies just for that one detail alone. It is the coolest effect you could do, and in horror it is just so great. I love it. Best art direction you could go with. And another visual thing I love is this like specifically like sketchy line art I see a lot of comic artists do. I love the works of Alex Moore, who does the art for Dungeons and Daddies. They have like such a fun sketchy style that uses color very well, but I just like how like detailed and like thin and precise their line work is. Same with Carrie Pierce, the artist for the Taz comics. Her work is so detailed and crispy, and I love the sketchy work of the Adventure Zone comics art. This like kind of line art looks so purposeful without looking messy and like a way that looks unfinished, and has like such a nice like fun traditionally drawn quality to it. I also really love good environmental storytelling. I love a setting in a video game or a show where you could tell like what has happened in that environment without somebody narrating it at you. Elden Ring is a huge one in this regard. Those like first steps in Lindell properly that you go into after like your first 2 great runes and you are allowed to go into the city for the first time, and it just like opens up with this like view of the entirety of Lindell, and you see this like gigantic calcified dragon impaled in the middle of the city, and you're just like, holy crap, what happened here? It's a very good set piece. Other places like outside of Lindell's walls where Morgott defended the city from Godric's attacks, or the battlefield in Kylid where you could fight Radahn and see the devastation left from his battle with Malenia, or even just around Kylid in general. It's done very well, and like wandering through the realm of Shadow and Shadow the Erdtree and seeing the devastation left behind by Marika's war against the Hornsent, it's fantastic. It's just very good environmental storytelling throughout the whole game. Breath of the Wild also does this beautifully as well. It lets you go through Hyrule and see the destruction of that Ganon left behind 100 years before your awakening, allowing you to pick up the pieces to a war that your character has forgotten and you, the player, are unfamiliar with. I love the environments that I can immerse myself in by seeing this underlying story that can be uncovered just by looking at it, and it's done so well when it's done right. Now, in my last video, I ripped into how much I hate horror media about funny guys that turned a funny guy into deer monsters, which, by the way, let's sit down for a second. Apparently, a lot of you guys did not know what I was talking about when I mentioned funny guys. One, you're not supposed to say the monster's name, but I also gave you the names of 1 video game and 2 movies that have funny guys in it. If you typed in something on Google like the monster from Until Dawn, then your first results are literally the name of the monster. I don't know what you guys meant by me not being descriptive enough when I literally posted a picture of the monster from Until Dawn right on the screen of my video. I get if you're just listening to the audio, but this is one of those times where I'm going to be like, please use Google for something. Please use Google for something. I was not being too vague. I very much gave examples. I'm not mad. I just thought it was really funny. I get it, it's the internet, whatever. But regardless, despite my one-person ever-ongoing war of how much I hate Dear Monster funny guys, I have this much vitriol in my heart for them because I love Dear Monster designs that are not appropriative or supposed to be funny guys. Horned Head from Old Gods of Appalachia, the elk sacrifice in episode 4 of the Silt Verses, the teeth deer from High Nigh, Malamar from Hello from the Hollowoods, Modor from The Ritual, my beloved. I had not watched that movie, but I love her design so much. I just love a good Dear Monster design. It is my favorite kind of breakfast. I got my own 2 guys in Harmony already who are Dear Monster adjacent, and there will be more. There will be more Dear Monsters. I just love a good Dear Monster, and I thank Dear every day for being the little weirdos that they are. You go on and continue to be funky horror fodder. And speaking of funky horror, but I love weird funky horror. I can appreciate a good slasher film or a story about vampires or whatever, but I love a piece of media that gets weirder and weirder and weirder with it. The SCP series, Annihilation, Bloodborne, like as a few examples. I love it when the horror takes its story and it just gets weird with it as it could. My friends and I occasionally like to play a tabletop RPG game called The Zone that takes a lot of inspirations from things like SCP, Stalker, Annihilation, and more, and it's set up as a role-playing game where we all direct a story. And I love playing this game. I love taking what my friends come up with and what the game provides us as we play and seeing how weird we could possibly take it. It is such a fantastically fun game to play if you love improvisation and just making up your own world building as you go. It is one of my absolute favorite games that we play. The last session we did, it was a really good one. It's probably one of my all-time favorite tabletop RPG sessions I have ever played in general. But it had this huge doppelganger theme, and we kind of added a little bit of a pseudo time loop at the end of it. It was very, very, very good. But horror that gets is unafraid to just get with as weird and bizarre with it as it could. It's just so nice, and it's something I want to achieve when I'm brainstorming some of the more horror aspects of a Shendo. I cannot wait to get to some weird shit. And another little bit of horror that I really like is when you combine meat with mechanics. The game Soma is something that I think was the very first piece of media that kind of just had me go oh, I really enjoy this type of horror. But I also love the works of Simon Stalenhag, who has some pieces with a similar vibe to them. I just love a good horror story that mixes machinery and meat, and I don't know, I just find that very aesthetically pleasing. And that is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed me rambling about the things I like instead of just things I dislike. Again, I love queer stories, and I hope that everyone watching this will go support Magnet on Seed and Sparks. I want to see this film get made, and that could only happen if it receives proper funding and everyone gets paid what they deserve. So go check it out if you can. And if you like my work, consider liking and subscribing. Next month, I plan on doing a video about Art Fight. It's coming up, and I want to make a guide for newcomers because honestly, everyone makes these every year, and I kind of want to throw my hand on it because I got a couple more things that I've been noticing that I want to talk about, and I think it would be really fun. So stick around if you want to see that. And if you want to support me, consider checking out my webcomic In Harmony. It's a queer horror story that has all sorts of my favorite things in it, and you can read it for free on inharmony.thecomic.org. And for those who sub to my Patreon, you guys can see pages 2 weeks ahead, so go check it out. Currently, things are happening. I could just say that. We're actually nearing the end of chapter 4. I already finished sketching out all the pages, and it's gonna be 56 in general. I don't know if I mentioned that in the last video, but I'm mentioning it now. So go read it if you want to catch up before chapter 4 ends and we go on our hiatus before chapter 5. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye!